Hey, good morning, Ram family. It's John. It's April 20th, Monday, and I've got a quick update for you. First of all, Governor Abbott issued executive orders late last week, and in those executive orders, he did order the physical closure of all Texas public schools, and I believe private schools too, for the remainder of the school year. That does not mean that the school year is over. We are in the sixth 6 weeks, and we continue with at-home learning. So please make sure, parents, that you and your student understands that the governor's order did not close schools. It just closed the physical facilities of schools to prevent or thwart the spread of the virus. We will continue educating. Students will continue doing their assignments, and there are grades attached to those assignments, which will translate into pass-fail type situation or satisfactory, unsatisfactory situation at the elementary level. So right after the governor's order came out, University Interscholastic League, which is the UIL, they came out with a statement saying all spring events have been canceled. That is a devastating blow for a lot of our students who participate in UIL activities, and my heart goes out to all of those students who are losing a season, but especially our senior students who are losing their last season of sports. We had a lot of really good things going on, had some winning records and a couple of playoff runs that were coming up, and to see that just go away because of this virus it's unprecedented, but it's also heartbreaking. And I just want to make sure I express my sympathy to you guys, the students. And I also want to say it's not just athletics, but that's a big part of it. We have soccer and baseball and softball and track and field and golf and tennis and all these spring sports. Powerlifting, I don't believe powerlifting made it to the end of their season. I might be wrong about that. Well, no, we had not made it to the state level for sure. I know we had some kids that qualified for later rounds that maybe their season ended prematurely. But then beyond athletics, we had UIL academics that we were scheduled to be the host of the district meet. We had Kids in Skills USA that did not get to finish their season, which Skills USA is a career and technical event that kids around the nation do. And, we'd find arts events that we did not get all the way through. Heart goes out to Jackie Harvey. We were set to host the area track meet for which is the next level after district. That was going to be hosted in Mineral Wells. And and not to mention the stock shows. Everybody remembers that because that was right there at the beginning of all this, that the Houston Stock Show got canceled. So a lot of kids have lost this year. So, jumping off of that point, oh, and I want to say this too. I was going to say this. UIL is not the only athletic, or the UIL is not just athletics, but it's not the only extracurricular organization that has canceled all spring events. TAPS also did, which is the private school version of UIL. So private school kids also lost some experiences and events that they were looking forward to. So basically every kid in Texas is hurting that was involved in extracurriculars. But the next topic I want to talk about is have a lot of people asking what we're going to do about graduation. I just want to tell you we're working on a frequently asked questions document that will answer that. We worked on it Friday, and we've got a draft version that I'm going to share with my team, and we're all going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, make sure it's right, make sure it's accurate. And it won't just have to do with graduation. It's going to have to do with what do we do. But we got library books at home. We need to turn them in. When do we do that? My kid left stuff in his locker. When are we going to get that? What about yearbooks? Hey, I paid for a fundraiser. When am I going to get my fundraiser I paid for? How do we turn in our Chromebooks when this is all over, or do we keep them? Just a whole. We're actually putting out two FAQ documents, one for students and parents, and a separate one for teachers, because I know there are teachers out there wondering about. We have a lot of year-end stuff that we do. How are we going to do all of that year-end stuff since we're not together? So just know those are coming out. I'm aiming for Wednesday. We might be able to get it out Tuesday. What I'm wanting to make sure is we don't rush it and put it out and then catch mistakes and have to pull it back, fix the mistakes, and put it out again, because then there'll be two versions out there and it'll be very confusing for everybody. So we're trying to work out everything, make sure everything's right. And I want to make sure lots of eyes here internally have seen it, because if a lot of these things touch different departments. So I want the food services director seeing it. I want the technology director seeing it, the maintenance director, business and finance, human resources. I want everybody seeing these two documents before I put them out and we stub our toe, So just know that's coming out probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I appreciate your patience. we've had a lot of people, or I've had a lot of people share with me, but I also know my principals have had a lot of people share with them different ideas, things that other schools have done that people have seen on Facebook. And I want you to know we're looking at all of those ideas, but we can't implement everything that everybody's doing. Like, we're going to have to pick and choose and say this is what we're doing. So there are some great ideas, and the fact that we don't do something doesn't mean we don't think it's a great idea. It's just that you can't, there's thousands of schools around the nation. They're all doing different things, and a lot of the different things they're doing are all good ideas. We just can't, we don't have the money or the manpower to do everything that everybody's doing nationwide. So please understand that. I'm not trying to be horsey about it. I just want to make sure everybody understands we're going to do as much as we can, but we're not going to be able to do every good idea that's floating around out there. Our project graduation, I think, if I'm wrong, if I'm crediting the wrong organization, I apologize, but I believe it's Project Graduation put together a really neat idea: adopt a RAM or adopt a senior, and it's exactly what it sounds like. They would ask a business or an adult, an individual to pick a senior randomly out of a hat, and they actually drew numbers, I believe, and say that's your senior. Do something for them to make their senior year more special, whether it's a gift bag or something. And the news I saw last night was that every senior who's participating in this has at least two adopters adopting them. And so that I just wanted to brag on our community for that. That's really awesome that our community stepped up during a hard time. I know there are a lot of folks out there with lost income, lost jobs, and despite the fact that we're going through this hard time, we had people with a heart for our seniors saying, I'll adopt a senior. So thank you to all of you who've adopted a senior. Let's see. It seems like there was one other thing I want. Yeah, okay. Had a parent ask me, what about next school year? These new approaches that are being used for at-home learning, whether it's video chats or whether it's the electronic provision of assignments, homework, and the electronic handing in of things, will these techniques and technologies influence school for next year? And we had a really neat conversation back and forth over, I think, email. And so I first misinterpreted the question, and I thought what the parent was asking was, if we're nervous about sending our kid to school next year because of the virus, will we be able to opt to continue the at-home learning model? And my answer to that, and that wasn't the question, actually, I misinterpreted it, but my answer to that was, that's not up to Mineral Wells ISD, that's up to TEA. Typically, school districts, to count a student present, which that's average daily attendance, is how TEA funds schools. And so your money comes in based on how many kids come to school, and you pay your salaries based on that money. So you have to have, a lot of people, when superintendents talk about money, they're like, oh, that's all y'all care about is money. But we do have to pay the teachers' salaries, and so we do care, that we're bringing in more than we're, enough to cover our payroll. But anyway, total rabbit trail. I'm sorry. So the deal is, what I'm getting at is, prior to this event, prior to coronavirus, there wasn't really a provision for a student to be educated at home by the school district and the school district to get funded by the state for educating that kid. It just didn't work that way, except with one exception. If a student qualified for homebound services because they'd been in, say, a car accident, or they had a very serious illness, there was a provision for that, but that required medical certification, and it's not, you couldn't qualify for homebound just because there's a sickness going around and you're concerned about your child, being exposed to it. So that was my first answer was, that's up to TEA whether or not the home-based learning model could continue in the future. And I don't know what TEA will do about that. I think TEA doesn't know, because we don't know how things are going to look with the virus in the fall next year. But that wasn't her question. Her question was actually, no. Do you think that these technologies and techniques will still be used by teachers, say, like when a student is absent, or when the teacher's absent and they're leaving work for kids? Will there, or say with homework, for example, will these approaches still continue? And my answer to that was, yeah, I think schooling has changed permanently because of the coronavirus, and not just schooling. I know a whole lot of industries. I talked to somebody yesterday who works in engineering, and he said his company is talking about going to a 4-day in-person work week and Friday work from home model. So I think there's going to be a lot of changes like that everywhere. And so, with the way that our teachers teach our students, I think there's no exception. They're typically with technologies when they come out in the school district, things evolve pretty slowly because teachers are so swamped with grading papers and contacting parents, and then of course coming up with lesson plans and actually teaching. They spend most of their time, in front of kids actually teaching. That eats up the majority of their day, and then these other things that they have to do, like grade papers, it's tough. There's a lot of take home homework for teachers too. So a lot of times adopting new technologies, even though they're out there, and you've got technology companies coming up with all sorts of bells and whistles all the time, a lot of teachers just literally don't feel like they have the time to investigate these different technologies and figure out how they work, and then implement, put them into practice. And another factor is there's just so many technologies and so many companies out there peddling their wares, and a lot of it's snake oil. Education is a very faddish industry, and I'm sure a lot of industries are. But to sort through that and find the gold and the really good things, and then because it takes time to learn every one of those programs, well, you just don't have time to learn them all. So what coronavirus has done, which coronavirus is a terrible thing, and I'm not even talking about looking for a silver lining or anything like that. I'm just saying in reality, coronavirus has forced school districts and people like me, and my teachers and my principals, to identify those technologies that have an immediate practical use that can help us continue educating our kids. And so we've identified several of those technologies, and my teachers have shared with each other, and different teachers, maybe have different preferences on which program they use, but there's certain things that have bubbled to the surface as really, really useful and practical. And I don't think teachers are going to forget about those once the school year starts. So homework may look a little different. The one thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up because this is already getting kind of long, is we still will have in the future the fact that several of our students won't have internet connectivity in their house. We've got folks in our community that don't have running water in their house. We've got folks in our community, including students, that are classified as homeless. But we have a lot of kids that do have internet connectivity at their home too, and so I do think we'll be using these technologies. I think coronavirus has changed education in a sort of a permanent way going forward. To answer that question, which I thought was an interesting question, I thought it was a very, very thoughtful question. And we are looking ahead to next year. We're spending most of our time and attention on getting through this year, but we are starting to have conversations about next year. There's a lot of unknowns for next year that will be determined by the virus more so than by us, and how things look in August. But hopefully we will have moved way past the peak of this thing. The number of cases will have dropped precipitously. And I think I've already said in the video, but if I haven't, I'm gonna say it. We are working on documentation for safe schooling next year too, where we're looking at things, and that'll be coming out just as soon as we get it done. That's a little bigger document. It's about 50 something pages. The example I took an example from an industry, and I'm reworking that for us. And so it's also going to take writing the document, but then again, we're going to have the whole team look at it and make sure that we can all implement it with fidelity. That's enough for today. This is a 13-minute video, so I'll shut up. Thanks for listening. Bye.